though it does bring up some interesting questions and something I want to talk about right now, the idea of diversifying your marketing mix. So, with this possible TikTok ban in place, it's really, really easy for a business to sometimes get caught up in the excitement of the next big thing, whether it be TikTok or whatever else comes along in the coming months and years. And they put all their marketing eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. Then things change, people change, technology changes. Elon buys X, TikTok gets banned. Before you know it, you're on the outside looking in because you put all your marketing eggs in this basket, and that basket is no longer around. I think we all agree that maintaining a diversified marketing presence is important. What would one tip be that you could offer a creator, a business, to kind of ensure that your eggs are moved around in multiple baskets instead of sitting in just one? I can go first because this is something that I preach quite a bit. The idea of owning some of that real estate as opposed to simply leasing it or renting it. So when you think about social media, you're really just leasing or renting space, even if you don't pay for it, on a platform like Facebook or TikTok, etc. And then as changes come over the horizon, you have to abide by the rules of wherever you're claiming your stake. When you own a piece of online real estate like a website, it gives you way more freedom to be able to do what you want when you want. You want to make changes to your website, you want to change functionality, etc. You don't have somebody else sitting there saying, "Nah, you can't do that. That's outside of the parameters of what we offer here on this platform." So for me, that idea of always maintaining some sort of owned stake is extremely important. And you know what? I know that a lot of businesses and people are saying, well, where I actually get most of my attention is on social media. And I don't dispute that. That's probably true for a lot of businesses. But in saying that, if that switch ever gets flipped, you don't want to be standing there with nothing. So to me, that owned piece is extremely important. And the website, as we've chatted about multiple times, doesn't need to be big, doesn't need to be bulky, but you just want to have that piece available to you where you can do anything you want with it. Duncan, what about you? When we talk about kind of making sure all your eggs aren't in that one basket, what's a tip you can offer people?
I mean, I think that's kind of the nature of the internet, though.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of what you're trying to do, you really don't own anything. So like if you wanna put a website up and you use GoDaddy or you use any of those server offers, if they go out of business, your website's down.
Or a third-party tool like a Wix, for example, right? Shopify.
No different than social media. I mean, you make Pinterest, you make LinkedIn. If any of those companies want to, or they go out of business, or they want to change something internally, you are at their whim. I mean, a really good example of this is Google recently made a huge SEO update for those in the search engine realm, where if you had like a content mill website where you had a lot of ads in your content, so think like BuzzFeed, a lot of those places, they used to rank really well for organic posts. Google made their update and they're like, we don't want this kind of trash content anymore that forces people to click through 13, 15 pages to see the top 15 X, Y, and Z. Those sites are seeing 99% drop in traffic. So Google just decided on a whim to make a new algorithm change that it thinks benefits users. And then these people that relied on Google constantly and was abiding by their current algorithm for SEO now are seeing literally 100% decline in revenue because they're not getting any of that organic traffic anymore. Facebook did this in Canada, where they had about news articles being posted in Canada, and then all of these news agencies now can no longer have their content being posted on social media. So while I kind of agree that there may be safeguards to it, I think in reality it's just the nature of the web. You are going to have to play by their rules, and you kind of do when you sign up for any of these products, that you are at their mercy when it comes to a lot of these things. And in reality, you really don't own much online. Like I kind of agree with you, Brian. Your website content is your website content, and that's likely your be all and end all. But if Google changes the algorithm for search, maybe people can't find you. And like, there's so many different things that you have to take into account. And I think that's why the digital realm is so nuanced and tricky. And frankly, it's probably why our jobs exist, is because people aren't on top of these things constantly. And you kind of have to be to make sure that your visibility, your marketing is working the way you want it to. The ads that you're showing are showing up, your website's showing organically. Like, you have to be on top of it, and you can't just set it and forget it, because changes will be making behind the scenes and will affect you in the long run.
Duncan, you brought up the idea of Meta not showing news articles in Canada. We run into this odd problem where we have a client in the States that we handle social media for, and we'll have to post a news article. They want it on Facebook. We'll post it, and it's really tricky because we can't actually see it when we post it.
Yeah.
So we have to double check with them to make sure it looks okay, because we can't see it because we live here. So but you bring up some great points, Duncan. You know, at the end of the day, there are these larger powers that really determine what people see, when they see it, what's important, what isn't, and ultimately you do the best you can, and you roll with the punches, and you try to stay on top of things, because one little change and things can change dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, what about you? A tip for marketers looking to ensure that they have kind of a diversified portfolio when it comes to what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few angles to this, obviously, and I'll kind of echo what you guys just mentioned in a moment. But yeah, I suppose the first point about the diversification, we've talked about this a few times in the past, whereby our recommendation to people is always focus on where your audience is mainly first. You know, don't try and spread yourself too thin. Don't just try and go into every channel because you can. I mean, you'd be very diversified, but then you have to ensure that you can manage and maintain everything that you're trying to do. So it's better to do one very well than do 10 very poorly. So I think diversification is good, and we're not saying these things to put people off of using these tools, obviously. By having 2 or 3 social media platforms that you do focus on and do very well, I think that can certainly be great. It ensures that you're meeting your audience where they are. It ensures that if you put out some newsworthy content and one goes down, then you perhaps have it in a couple of other places. So it's good for all these reasons. But as I mentioned, to echo what you have both said, you do not own your own content on these platforms. And if you have written 100 blog posts that are all on LinkedIn, and all of a sudden LinkedIn goes down, or LinkedIn bans you, or LinkedIn chooses to delete your content or anything like that, then you have just lost your 100 blog posts that you've written. So it's always good to ensure that you do have backups of all your content. Similar situation for YouTube. If your videos are all on YouTube and you think that's my backup, then that is not your backup. You want to make sure you have all these things saved locally on your computer, ideally on an external hard drive, and ideally with that external hard drive backed up as well, so that if everything goes down or you need to start again from scratch, you're not starting again from scratch. You still have an accessible version of everything you've spent time and effort creating in the past. So
Ian makes a really good point. I mean, people get hacked all the time. Accounts get hacked all the time. And then lots of times the only solution to that is just deleting the account or starting from scratch. So if you're live uploading to YouTube or any of those sorts of things where you're not categorizing your content and putting it into a specific space on a drive or whatever that may be, you run the risk of losing it all.